As you can see, the weather has not improved. It's absolutely soaking here in the Cotswolds, and we've just taken out the E-Tron, we've taken out the SQ7, and now it's time to take out the brand new RS3. This is a car that has been covered online so much. They're so well received, and I cannot wait to get behind the wheel. So let's jump on in, take this Audi out for a drive. Before we jump in, I just want to touch on the exterior of this car. This is quite an unusual colour to see an RS3 in. It's a really, really sort of off yellow, sort of mustardy colour. And I think it does actually suit the car with these matte black wheels and all the black detailing, black exhaust, and a little black lip spoiler. I think it does look really good. And I don't know about you, but I prefer this saloon version to the hatch. It's a much, much nicer looking car. This one is fitted with the optional panoramic roof. And I think some of the details you don't really see online, like this scoop down the side, and the sill is really nice and wide. These cars look so much better in real life than they do on pictures. But anyway, I'm getting absolutely soaked, so let's jump on in, take this Audi out for a drive. Right, so we've jumped into the third car of the day, and one I've been really looking forward to. In fact, when we came back with the SQ7, I was left a little bit disappointed. The E-Tron was such a blast to drive, exhilarating. To get into the SQ7 was a little bit of a come down from that, so I'm hoping the RS3 is going to pull through with some amazing driving dynamics. This car, compared with the SQ7, is so much more suited to these sort of roads. The country roads around here are very, very tight, and this thing's little. It's a really small car, the size of a Golf, but it's a saloon, so it looks a lot different. And we're doing pretty much the same route in each of the cars, so it gives you a really good idea of what they're like compared side by side. They're all nicely warmed, so you can nail it. Right, okay, that's more my kind of thing. Like, that thing took off and made a right racket. This is more my kind of car. So it just pulls really hard. It sounds wonderful. And the suspension is rock hard, to say the least. But again, it kind of suits the car. It's definitely more antisocial, this thing. It encourages the yob in you to come out and really, really push the car. It's properly crazy fast. The gear changes are lightning speed, and you can just tap the paddles just as you can in a Golf R. And they're so, so fast. The changes are incredible. It just encourages you to drive like a lunatic. Not that we're breaking the speed limit, obviously. Suspension, it's just good. Like, it's really firm, but it really does inspire confidence. I think the trade-off in comfort that you have to pay for the handling is well worth it, in my opinion. It's fine. Whereas in some cars, you get really hard suspension and they just don't travel across the ground very well. This one really, really does. It holds the road. So we're coming up to the usual place where every single time we have launched cars on this video, but there is a horse. So I'm gonna give the horse a minute, because I want to do a launch and I don't want the horse to get in the way and injured, obviously. I wonder how you activate launch control. So I put the car into its dynamic setting, turned off traction control. And off we go. It was a little bit dramatic. I'm not sure I did that right, but bloody hell, this thing, it goes. And even though it's absolutely soaking wet outside, the grip levels are just crazy. My Porsche would have been all over the road, and I've been in four-wheel drive cars that have not gripped like that. Like, the four-wheel drive system in this, the Audi Quattro, I mean, it's unreal. It's definitely class leading. In dynamic, it's so much better as well. The steering weights up, the suspension's nice and firm, the exhaust is really loud. You can probably hear that now. It does certainly pull. We're in fully manual mode now, so I can test out this gearbox. I'll tell you what though, on these roads, the car does feel like you're losing traction over that back end, which is really nice. You can feel the car getting loose on the back end and you're able to control it through the corner. It's a hooligan, is this car. It's an absolute hooligan. Out of all the cars I have test drove today, this is the most fun by a mile. This thing just handles so nicely and just encourages you to play with it. A lot of people will say that Audis are quite clinical, and I would say after the ones I've driven so far, they sort of are. The E-Tron GT, although it is extremely fast, it's very, very safe and secure on the road and doesn't offer that much excitement other than the sheer pace. Whereas this just brings out a different side to you, and it brings out more of a, it just feels like a proper hot hatch. It doesn't feel like 400 horsepower is too much, which is surprising, because when you think about a 400 horsepower hot hatch, that's crazy. Like, it wasn't that many years ago when supercars had 400 horsepower. So to get that from a hot hatch just boggles the mind. One thing that I didn't quite expect from the RS3, because it's turboed and it clearly has quite a large turbo, you often find a lot of turbo lag, and you just get none with this. Like, I'm not saying it doesn't feel turboed, because it does. You do feel the turbo build, and you do rely on that when it comes to overtaking and really exploiting the car's performance. It's all available mid-range, but it doesn't seem to back off. You can really rev the car out, which is surprising, but also it doesn't feel like it's lagging. So you put your foot down and the gearbox responds and you're off. There's no lag. You're not waiting for that torque to come from the turbo. You are gone. And you're gone with that beautiful sound, that 5-cylinder snarl that you get from an Audi, which you don't really get from any other car. It's a very, very distinctive noise, and it sounds glorious. It's a proper ASBO car. It's like a Golf R, but even more aggressive. And I think it would just attract a lot of attention. So if you're not really after that kind of vibe, I'm not really sure the RS3 is for you, and especially not in yellow. This will attract so much attention, and possibly all the wrong attention. But I love it. It really does suit me. It would just be perfect car for me, this. And again, like I was talking about earlier about the interior, it's just really nice Audi. It's just super well built. And all these actual buttons do make a massive difference. I'm just really not a fan of touchscreens. And this has one, it works really nicely. Some cars have two, have three, have a massive one. This has plenty of buttons, and that's really, really important for me. The cabin is just typical Audi. It's nothing spectacular. It doesn't scream at you that you're in anything other than an A3. There's little RS badging everywhere, but there's nothing too dramatic. The seats are very, very nice. They're not overly bolstered at the sides, but they do hold you in nice and firmly. So you don't feel like you would need anything more bucketed than this. They're very adjustable, and you can sit nice and low in the car. It feels really, really nice. So what are the things that I've noticed about this car in the short time I've been driving it? I mean, like I said, this is not a full review because I've not had a chance to sit down and read the press pack. I've just been handed the keys to an RS3, jumped in it, and I've got to give you my thoughts on what I think to it, because it's quite difficult in that short space of time. The things that I love, obviously, is the sound, the speed, and just those grip levels that I talked about earlier. Nothing really that I've driven so far comes close to this. It is worth mentioning that these cars, when they came out, were selling for over £70,000, which for a hot hatch is a ton of money. That's going into a Porsche garage and walking away from a Cayman to get in this. And I'm not sure I could do that. I'm really not. But it's a lovely car nonetheless. The things that I dislike about it, again, it's like the E-Tron. I've not really driven it enough to find things that I don't like. I'm gonna say it, the colour, probably not for me. It's a bit too aggressive, a bit too attention grabbing. And I think with the car as it is and the way that it encourages you to drive it, I think you're just gonna end up in a load of trouble. I certainly would anyway. But other than that, there's not really a great deal I don't like about the RS3. It's a lovely, lovely car. So anyway, we'll head on back to Audi, see what else we can get. I'm hoping that we can get into the RS5, because that thing looks like an absolute weapon. Take that out before we head on in for lunch. So yeah, without further ado, let's head on back to Audi and see what else we can find.